friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Trisha, and in today's video I will be sharing with you my process of curating a limited watercolor palette of 5 colors. 3 out of 5 of these colors are actually granulating colors, and they add a lot of character to this limited palette. Since you may not have these exact granulating watercolors from the respective brands, I'll also show you how to create the closest versions of these granulating paints from existing watercolors that you may have and are commonly available. During the course of this video, I'll also share with you the 3 guiding principles that I find useful when working with a limited palette. I hope you're excited. Let's get started. Let me first start with the 5 colors in the limited palette. So the first one is a Yellow Ochre, which is pigment yellow 42. All these colors are semi-transparent colors. Yellow Ochre is a lovely muted color, and it's probably the lightest color that is there in this limited palette, and you can get a really light value of it too. So it's great for washes in general, and I substitute the lightest values in the composition that I'm inspired from with Yellow Ochre. The next color is olive green. It's a convenience color. This is from White Nights. This is probably the brightest color in this limited palette. I'm just referring to my notes here on the side. So this is a composition of pigment yellow 1, which is Hansa yellow, pigment green 17, which is chromium oxide green, and pigment black 7, which is carbon black or lamp black. So olive green is one of the brighter colors in the palette. It's great for spring, for grass, for highlights in compositions. The next 3 colors are granulating watercolors from White Nights. These are the full pans, and I bought them individually online. And Taiga green is a beautiful, dark, natural, foresty green, and it's quickly become one of my favorite colors. It's very rich and pigmented really well. Now this is a granulating color, and the composition of Taiga green is pigment brown 7, which is burnt umber, and pigment blue 15-3, that is phthalo blue, the green shade. The next color is my favorite. This is Hematite Mist, again from White Nights granulating pans. And Hematite Mist is a combination of ultramarine blue, which is PB29, and PR101, which is synthetic iron oxide red, or commonly known as burnt sienna. Such a lovely, deep, earthy muted purple, and the soft blue particles, pigment particles actually settle down, and they form the granulating part of the paint. This is a lovely color, and it's ideal for deep, dark earth composition or even skies. Just dropping some water in to activate the granulation more effectively. You can already see the soft blue particles separating. And the last color in this limited palette is called Dark Blue Shadow, which is a combination of pigment black 11 or iron oxide black and PB 15-6, which is phthalo blue red shade.
a lovely, deep, rich blue, very moody, and ideal for sky, water, and even when mixed with some of these other colors can form some natural shadows.
These little compositions in my sketchbook was a playground for me to experiment with this limited palette. I really didn't set out with a composition in mind, and these were very abstract, loose watercolors where I allowed the colors and the paints to just mix and merge, leaving some white spaces here and there. Now, why I feel this limited palette works for me. I think something really interesting happens when you choose your set of limited colors. For example, in these colors, most of them appear to come from the same small family. They seem like an analogous muted palette. And in a way, they begin to echo each other throughout any composition. For example, a green might appear in the sky, or a blue might appear in the shadow of the grasslands, and an ochre might just warm the light. In a way, nothing seems isolated within this palette, and they come together really well, connected in a way, and probably that's the heart of color harmony. Coming to the 3 rules or principles that guide me when I'm using a limited palette. The first is using the lightest color in your palette liberally. Don't be afraid to use it even when the real world color might be slightly different. This limited palette that I've curated lends itself easily to landscapes, so it's not so difficult to imagine a yellow ochre, for example, as the lightest color in the palette that I'll use for a liberal wash at the start of most compositions. So sometimes the lightest value matters most than the exact hue. Rule number 2 is start replacing the other colors in your reference with the closest color available in your palette. This is where the interpretation begins. Say a red object might become a muted violet, or a bright green might become an olive. Goal here isn't perfect accuracy, it's more to achieve visual harmony. Rule 3, which is the most important, is be careful to keep the association within the painting consistent. For example, if I decide to use hematite violet to represent, say, a red object somewhere in the composition, I'll try not to suddenly replace another red object with, say, olive green, because then the viewer's brain gets confused. Instead, I try to keep those substitutions coherent across the whole composition.
There is one mixed media element that I've been using along with this limited palette, and that's a soft pastel pencil. This is from the Watercolour soft pastel pencils set of 8 natural colors. And while it doesn't have the name given on the individual pastel pencils, this does seem like a burnt sienna. Let me start with my favorite one, which is Hematite Mist. Now, as per the information from the brand, this is a combination of PB29 ultramarine blue and PR101. right? Now I'm going to pick out the ultramarine deep that I have from Holbein's watercolor, as well as the burnt sienna that I have. This is from PwC. This is PR101 and this is PB29. So we're going to try and mix this together to try and achieve the closest version possible to Hematite Mist. So what is obviously not available as information is the exact ratio of the pigments, but we're just going to do some trial. So this is ultramarine deep and this is burnt sienna. Just going to bring in the two a little close to see how they mix together. Now you'll notice that how much ever I try, getting that purpley color is not really possible with just these two somehow. It also depends on the quality of the original pigments that they've used versus what I have, and hence it'll be probably difficult to get the exact match just using the recipe that is given on the brand leaflet. Now let me show you what happens when I swatch this out next to it. So you'll see that it's a very muted gray. You will see the ultramarine blue separating out, but it's still not got that purple color to it or the undertone to it, which is missing, right? And that's where I thought of bringing in a quinacridone magenta. I'm just going to refer to my notes here because this is where I'd done the experiment. So I tried it out with Crimson Lake and I got definitely closer to Hematite Mist. But then when I added PR122, which is quinacridone magenta, I got really close to the original Hematite Mist. So we're just going to add a bit of the quinacridone magenta to this and then let's see what happens. Now that looks closer. Probably it'll need a little bit more of blue. You can even titrate it further to get as close a version. Look at that, for example. That definitely looks closer. And this is how you can mix a Hematite Mist using ultramarine deep, burnt sienna and quinacridone magenta. I think what was happening is PR101 being a warm red was completely neutralizing the ultramarine deep, and hence to cool it down it was important to add in the quinacridone magenta. And as this dries, you can see the soft blue particles separating even in this little swatch. Next, let's mix the dark blue shadow, which is lamp black, and I'm going to use ivory black, which is the same pigment. This is PBK7 from Camel, and phthalo blue. I don't have phthalo blue red shade. I have the phthalo blue yellow shade, but we'll try and get as close as possible to this moody blue. So this is definitely more greenish as compared to this original dark blue shadow. Let me try and mix a bit of quinacridone magenta directly from a tube here to see what happens. Yes, it definitely warms up this glow, and it's closer to this original dark blue shadow. I think I'm very happy with that. Next, for Taiga Mist, I'm going to mix the same phthalo blue yellow shade that I have with a pigment brown 7, a burnt umber, which is a single pigment, pigment brown 7 from Holbein's. So the raw umber from Camel is the same pigment, PBR 7, as well as the Holbein's burnt umber. So you can just play around and see which one works better. So that is with burnt umber from Holbein's. Along with phthalo blue. It does have a more yellowish quality to it. Single pigment, but called raw umber from Camlin. Yeah, so this is very gluey, and I think in terms of the hue, this is probably closer to the original Taiga Mist. There's a bit of a difference, I think, between all of them, but it's fairly close enough. Now coming to olive green. And olive green can be so varied. In fact, there are multiple recipes of mixing olive green from basic watercolors that you may have in your set. In fact, I found this shade of olive green by Dale Rowney the toughest to mix. Also because I don't have Hansa yellow or chromium green oxide. But the closest that I could get to this olive green is by mixing sap green, which is a very common color that you will get in any starter kit of watercolors. Tried it with New Gamboge. Now, none of these are single pigments that I'm mixing together. So sap green itself is a mix of different pigments, and so is New Gamboge. So mixing these two, I got this olive green, which you can see is definitely not as muted as the original olive green. But you can experiment. For example, if I take Yellow Ochre itself and add it in, it does become a more muted olive green as compared to the one above. The idea of this exercise was to begin with an envision of a limited palette and then see if you can actually mix some of the watercolors that you may have lying around and create that limited palette for yourself. Yellow Ochre, being a single pigment, is a standalone convenience color, and so I won't be showing you how to mix this Yellow Ochre.
Friends, I hope you found this video useful. Let me know in the comments below if you've ever curated your own limited watercolor palette and what your experience has been.
I'll see you in my next video. Until then, happy painting!